In today's program, we're going to talk about Chapter 3 of Hannibal's Stormwater System and its problems. I'm sure that if you're from Hannibal, you will remember that we call it Chapter 3 because we've had two proposals brought forth by the Hannibal Board of Public Works to get approval for a tax to pay for the maintenance and repair of our stormwater system. The first one was a proposal that was based on a sort of a property tax that had to do with impervious surfaces and how much of impervious surface was on each property, and for that property to be taxed accordingly. Now that proposition was rejected, but it was also subject to challenge because the state constitution prescribes only one way to tax real estate, and that is by the assessed valuation. Now, the second proposal that they came up with was a tax on electric meters. In April of 2025, that proposition was rejected by the voters by a nearly 2-to-1 majority. And I think we can say that the reason for that was probably because that proposition made absolutely no sense. The voters could not see, I'm sure, any relationship between an electric meter at your home or business and stormwater. And so there hasn't been much discussion since that April election. In preparing this presentation, I've talked to both John Ortworth, the president of the Hannibal Board of Public Works, and the Board of Public Works general manager, Darren Gordon. And they have advised me that they are still in the process of trying to figure out, or have someone figure out, an appropriate way to pay for the maintenance and improvement of the stormwater system. John told me that there was discussion that no proposition should be brought forward or discussed until after the vote on the public safety sales tax in November of this year. Well, that vote was had and it passed, and so now we're back trying to figure out what to do. Another thing that John told me that I think is worth note is he said it was his opinion that the city council should have the responsibility of figuring out what type of revenue would be proposed in order to take care of the stormwater system. The only thing that I think we can agree on, I hope we can all agree on, that whatever they come up with ought to be the result of an open process, an open discussion where everybody gets their chance to voice an opinion. On one of the presentations they had in the past, it was sort of brought up at the last minute. It was brought up in January before an April election, and there was no time for either the city council or the general public to have a discussion about the merits of what they were proposing. I think another thing that we ought to discuss and provide some information about is the history of the Hannibal's stormwater system. The former system of constructing and maintaining the stormwater system was a matter of the Hannibal Street Department doing the work under the supervision of the Hannibal city engineer. Now, we don't have a city engineer at this point and haven't had for some years, even though a city engineer is a requirement in our Hannibal City Charter. That is our municipal constitution, if you will. The street department, as we have discussed in a prior program, has been diminished as an economy measure. And I think we found that the city street department is down to just 7 or 8 personnel. Not nearly enough to do what they used to do in maintaining the stormwater system. So for your consideration, we'd like to mention a few items that I think should go into the discussion. And the first is, should the Hannibal Board of Public Works, a 4-member unelected body, receive and spend tax money? That's a philosophical point, that if we're going to have taxes and we're going to have people that will spend those tax dollars, shouldn't they be responsible to the voters? And the second point is, has the Board of Public Works in the immediate past exhibited good judgment with respect to this proposition? And I would say that an argument can be made, and I hope to do that they have not. In the last proposition to be brought forward, the Board of Public Works spent $250,000 or thereabout with the engineering firm of Black and Veatch to come up with an explanation of the costs and what would be done with the money, and the fact that in order to put our system for stormwater in good repair, it would cost $50 million over 10 years. And I think that we can all agree now that that was just a fairy tale. The information that Black and Veatch included in its report, which was extensive, had no relation to the actual situation and condition of Hannibal's stormwater system. And one of the reasons that it didn't is because of a lack of data concerning our stormwater system. At this point, on a positive note, the city's Board of Public Works has a good map of all of the stormwater system, both underground and above ground. And it may not be perfect, but it's a very good map. But where they have failed is the Board of Public Works has the capacity to examine every, both sanitary and storm sewer, with a television camera, so they can find out and have a display of all the problems that either of those systems have. But they have not done that. My suggestion would be that it would have been better for them to get that work done than to spend $250,000 with Black and Veatch on a report that really didn't take us any further down the road than we were. Now, another thing that I think we should bear in mind is, and we've discussed this before, the City Council has at its disposal approximately $20 million in unbudgeted funds in the municipal budget. It would be difficult for anyone from the city to explain to me why they would need another tax increase when they have that kind of money just invested and waiting for a use to be found for it. The suggestion that I think people ought to take into account would be, what would be wrong with reinstituting the system that we formerly had, where we have a city engineer on the staff of the city of Hannibal, not some outside engineering firm that's maybe or maybe not doing the very best to economize on tax dollars, and a reinvigorated and reconstituted street department where we once again have a construction company, if you will, to get the work done. That's far superior than an outside contractor where you take into account that they have to pay for insurance, they have to make a profit, and they have a number of other concerns that add to the price of anything that they do. So our suggestion is that you follow this issue, that you perhaps discuss it with your council representative, and that you be prepared to study whatever tax proposal is coming up next. It may be delayed because we have another sales tax proposal in the pipeline to subsidize the state of Missouri's Highway Commission, Transportation Department, in building a bypass on 61 to the west of Hannibal. So there's another tax that we're all going to have to be concerned about, and we hope that we'll be able to provide more information about that issue in a future program. So again, we'll say we really appreciate your kind attention to what we are trying to present in the interest of the public. And we will again express our appreciation for all your comments and guidance that you may give us. And we look forward to another episode in the very near future. Thank you for your attention.